Is it warocracy or autocracy? Or what type of crazy is that? Except crazy.
News making the headlines.
Black Maria is to carry criminals, trading looters that are in government today.
Sometimes it gets confrontational.
Slap you in the face.
Excuse me, don't put words into my mouth.
Whatever it is that will bring our military to disrepute, I say to hell
On
with it.
Core Digest,
I want to know why I should be believing them.
every weekday, we bring all of these together and take them to the court of public opinion.
Everybody have your right in Nigeria.
Where you are the judge. Kickstart the show this morning with a 3-month directive handed over to security chiefs by President Muhammadu Buhari. He says the chiefs will be held accountable this time on equipment and troops on the front line, hence the need to improve on their welfare. We're joined by Pius Samuel this morning, who has details of that report. Okay, I understand we're having troubles getting that for you, but we'll sure get that for you in no time. That report is insurgency deadline. Now, that's exactly what's on the lips of many now. How realistic is it really for the military to make this a reality, so to speak, in just 3 months, given the length of time that the insurgency are tarried in this part of the country? Do we have it now? All right, let's have it, please.
It is barely a month after their appointment as service chiefs by President Muhammadu Buhari. But the president is worried over the growing level of Boko Haram attacks in the northeast. He says he has visited some countries within Africa to solicit for support to stop insurgency in Nigeria. And to ensure an immediate end to Boko Haram activities, President Buhari handed down a 3-month deadline to the service chiefs.
While commending the efforts of the armed forces of Nigeria so far, you need to brace up and continuously team up with other stakeholders to come up with a well-coordinated joint effort which will bring a desired end to these insurgencies in 3 months. In the course of carrying out this assignment, you must be accountable for all men and equipment placed under your command. Your troops' welfare should be uppermost in your mind. Take care of them and make available what is due to them.
President Buhari charged the chiefs to respect the rights of terrorists when captured. This, he says, will help reduce human rights abuse. But he also wants the chiefs to take troops' welfare seriously if the fight against insurgency is to be won.
They abide with the existing newly enforced rules and regulations of international standards while carrying out their assigned tasks. In particular, you must protect innocent civilians in theaters of conflict and respect the rights of combatants once they are captured. This, no doubt, will earn the support of local communities and the respect of our allies and support of international community. Once more, I congratulate you. Get back to work and make Nigerians proud.
For his part, the Chief of Defense Staff, Gabriel Olani-Shakin, says the presidential directive to end insurgency in 3 months is a task that must be achieved. But first, he wants Nigerians to support the military in its quest to end insurgency.
The message for Nigerians is that we are on board and that we will strategize to ensure that the issue of Boko Haram is put to the past and all the menace is dealt with appropriately.
Would these 3 months be okay for you to push the enemies?
The president has given a presidential directive, and that's how it should start.
At the end, the service chiefs were decorated with their new ranks. The Chief of Defense Staff, Gabriel Olani-Shakin, has been decorated with the rank of a general. Chief of Air Staff, Sadiq Abubakar, is now Air Marshal. Chief of Army Staff, Tukur Buratai, has been decorated with the rank of a Lieutenant General. and Chief of Naval Staff Ibok Ete Ekwe Ibas has become Vice Admiral. Pius Samuel, Core TV News, Abuja.
Everybody hear that? Get back to work and make Nigerians proud. It's amazing that they can still put a smile on their faces after the 3-month deadline. I'm joined this morning on the show by public affairs analyst Nelson EKUJIMI. Thank you very much for finding time to come.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me on your program.
You're welcome, sir. Not many people agree with the actual date and year that insurgency in the name of Boko Haram kick-started officially in Nigeria. There are some who will say 2009, 2010, and thereabout. But then, given the length of time that we've had this take place, establish itself in northern Nigeria, do you see 3 months feasible for action?
Well, first and foremost, I think I must congratulate Nigerians that for a very long time, they have a commander-in-chief who knows his onions, a man who is aware of the constitutional responsibilities on his shoulders. And you can see it on display, where as the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, he has given the directive. And like we all know, man proposes, but God disposes. The directive is that they must go all out within their powers. They have been given all the implements to go and execute that war. So there will be no room for excuses. And that is why he has told them point blank that the welfare of the troops must be their top priority. Because you and I know that an indisciplined and a poorly motivated military is a danger to itself. And that was what has been playing out before the coming of this administration, whereby under the immediate past government, it was series of court-martials, insubordination, and gross indiscipline being exhibited by the Nigerian military. And it also got to a stage that the international community were unwilling to help the Nigerian forces in combating terrorism because of the breakdown of discipline, breakdown of transparency, breakdown of accountability. But for now, you can see that a directive has been given by the commander-in-chief. And like we say, no man putting his hand to the plow and looking back is fit for the kingdom. So any of the service chiefs that knows that he or she cannot carry out that presidential directive is better advised to quit the stakes, to quit the office now. And that is what has played out yesterday. That your commander-in-chief has given an order, you don't have any other option. So long as you are in the military, you must obey the order of your commander-in-chief to do that which is necessary. It sounds more like a do-or-die affair now, especially when we consider the reports of amnesty given recently about the conduct of Nigerian soldiers at the front line of war against insurgents. You also heard Mr. President talk about the rights of any, even member of Boko Haram that has been arrested. Are we also focusing on this dimension to the ongoing war? No, we must, because even in war, in conventional war, there's what is known as the rules of engagement. In conventional wars, when people surrender, you have no rights under the law to execute them. But what we found out from the allegations raised against the Nigerian military was that we had a poorly motivated military. We had a military that was very, very corrupt under the former government and the service chiefs then. We had a military that was very, very partisan. And that was what played out. That was the reason why every now and then you had issues of court-martials, of soldiers deserting the battlefront because they don't trust their commander who were giving them the orders. So, in as much as they are going to execute this war, it is imperative on them to put their eyes on the firing line to ensure that the rights of even the so-called insurgents are respected. Because the military, in as much as they are trained to protect the territorial integrity of Nigeria, in the situation of war, once the opposing side surrenders, it becomes criminal for you to shoot to kill. And they can only go out to kill when their life is in danger, because what will differentiate them from the Boko Haram is that the military is a professional institution. It's an institution that integrity, character, honor is the watchword. And when we send these military men out, we expect them to display the highest sense of professionalism and responsibility, unlike people who are not trained, who are just giving arms, to go and commit criminal acts. The military, by training, is not supposed to engage in criminality, but rather to discharge its constitutional responsibility wherever and whenever she finds herself.
Mr. President, in his few days in office, has been known as someone who has made some very controversial statements. It kick-started right from the day it was inaugurated, when he said, "I belong to nobody and I belong to everyone." You also hear him talk about his indifference about what takes place at the National Assembly, where he categorically stated that he wasn't going to dabble into party politics. Now he is given service chiefs 3 months ultimatum. You recall Boko Haram recently, gave their allegiance to the ISIS, giving it a more global dimension. Do you consider this deadline to the extreme, so to speak?
No. I don't think Mr. President has been making controversial statements. When Mr. President says, "I belong to nobody, I belong to everybody,"
is that a political reality?
Yeah, it's a political reality because of the fact that when he was aspiring to be the president, he was the candidate of a political party. But once he became the president, he became the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So whether you have voted for him or not, he becomes your president. The constitutional mandate on the shoulders of Mr. President is to protect the lives and properties of Nigerians wherever they are domiciled, irrespective of political, religious, and whatever inclinations. And that is what has happened. And for the 3 months, I think it is important that when a student gets into a school, there should be a time frame within which you are supposed to conclude your studies. And in the process of concluding your studies, there is what is known as continuous assessment. We call it CA. And there's what is known as terminal assessment. That is the examination period for what you have learned over this period. So what Mr. President has said is that he has given them a time frame. Look, we don't have the luxury of time on our hands. These criminals are killing our daughters, they are abducting them, they are destroying our homes, they are bringing the image of Nigeria into international disrepute. Because whether except we want to shy away from the fact, people will regard us today as a country that is bedeviled by terrorism, which wasn't a lot in the past. So what Mr. President has done is in tandem with his oath of office to ensure the protection of lives and properties. And you don't expect Mr. President to tell the service chiefs, now you have 4 years to combat. No way. Even if it was possible for Mr. President, I'm sure Mr. President would have even told them that, please, you must end this Boko Haram tomorrow. But because he knows it will be unrealistic. That is why he has given them the time frame. And within that 3 months, Mr. President is not saying you should end it in 3 months. If it is possible for you to end it in the next 1 week, you have the liberty to do so. Because from the statement I watched on TV and what I've read, is that the service chiefs, the military, are now getting all the needed support. And now they have a president, a commander-in-chief that is behind them, that you cannot play games with, that knows his onions. So it's either you shape up or you ship out.
They say governance or government, so to speak, is a continuum.
Yeah.
Are you baffled that there was a resurgence in suicide bombing aftermath the Jonathan administration? Because few weeks to the expiration of that particular tenure, we saw the Nigerian military practically winning the war. But the tide changed just immediately after the inauguration of the new president. Well,
the so-called winning the war about when the government Armstrong INEC to postpone the election by 6 weeks, I think is questionable. If you listen to the statements by the former Chief of Defense Staff, Alex Badi, and the Chief of Army Staff, Kenneth Minima, it shows you that the so-called victory they achieved then calls to question how they got it. Because if we look at their statements and the reality on ground today, it could have been that the so-called victory is a testimony to the statements, to the allegations by in some quarters, that government was also partly responsible for the insurgency. So some of us are afraid, maybe at that period in time, that government could have, alluded to the fact that she told our own arm of the Boko Haram to cease fire.
Those statements are unfounded, and
No. Those are statements in the public domain. I've just said it. I've not said.
I do not have any evidence.
We don't have evidence, yes. But when you take some steps, even when people don't have evidence, people can, read meanings into it. I'm saying there was this suspicion, there was this allegation that the government then was responsible for Boko Haram, was also funding Boko Haram. And why do I say this? When the international negotiator, Stephen Davis, came on air and astounded the whole world that some friends of the government were sponsors of Boko Haram, even including the former chief of army staff, Azubike Iyejirika, and the former governor of Borno State. One would expect any responsible government in an issue that has to do with the lives and properties of your citizens, when allegations of such are raised, you should investigate. What did the government do? The government said it was even unthinkable for anybody to imagine that these persons could be involved in funding Boko Haram. And for us, that was not tidy enough. That was not responsible enough. That is why when Amnesty raised the issue of the culpability of the military in human rights abuses, what did the government do? The president himself came on air and said, we will investigate. That is what is expected in decent climate from sane minds. When an allegation is raised, it behoves on you to investigate. Allegation is not a conviction or a proof. It is not left for you to investigate so that you can separate the wheat from the chaff. Why we have today the issue of suicide bombings is because of the fact that the military have upped their game. The way the Boko Haram were, riding in unhindered and capturing Nigerian territories and, destroying lives and properties, they cannot do that again. They have not changed tactics to suicide bombing. And that is why the military themselves and the security arm of the government, I'm sure they also must have, changed their own tactics to combat the new tactics of the terrorists. So it is not that there was a slide in the level of attack before the advent of Muhammad Buhari, why there's an increase now. No, it is because of the fact that now the Boko Haram terrorists cannot drive into towns and destroy and kill at will like they used to.
Let's talk about negotiation, because we heard Mr. President while he was in the U.S. talk about his readiness to negotiate if it's going to produce the release of the over 200 Chibok girls that were abducted some months ago. But recently, the Chadian President Idris Deby also was quoted to have said that the leader of Boko Haram, Abubakar Shekau, has been deposed, and he's been replaced by another person who he named. He also gave the information that this new leader and leadership is ready to talk with the federal government. And he didn't stop there. He added that he would not advise the current administration in Nigeria to negotiate, that he sees the regional force overcoming this war before the end of this year. There are many who have asked how did he get that information, but that's another part entirely. But let's talk about the issue of negotiation. The last time we heard about this was when the Nigerian army told us there was a ceasefire deal, and you and I know how that played out.
Yeah. Well, the issue is that I've read a lot of write-ups on the issue of how to combat Boko Haram. I've read military chiefs tell us that, look, this war should be fought on all fronts. We should discuss, that's negotiation, and we should engage militarily. And even former President Olusegun Obasanjo, who is also a retired general, advised the former President Goodluck Jonathan that, look, you should adopt the carrot and stick approach. And truly, Mr. President when he was in US, said they are open to negotiations. Don't forget that even in war, you negotiate to end the war. And I gave this analogy when some people were quarreling with the Mr. President's resolve to negotiate. And Mr. President stated it clearly that they are not just going to negotiate with anybody. They won't be scammed like the former government was scammed when they told us that they have negotiated with the Boko Haram, that they've resolved to have a ceasefire, that the girls will be released, only for the level of attacks to increase. And 1 week later, the government recanted. And some weeks later, the spokesperson of the Department of State Security Services, then Marinoga, came on air and paraded about 6 men who she said conned the federal government, and they lost a lot of money. So for us, those are also areas that the government should look into. So, but by and large, what I'm saying is that the area of negotiation, I think the government must keep it wide open.
Are you considering the moral justification? We've talked about this on this platform, and I could recall there was a caller who said, if we can give amnesty to Niger Delta militants, if we are considering amnesty, because that might also be a fruit of the negotiation for members of the Boko Haram, then what guts do we have to send to jail people who stole money relative to people who had killed thousands of innocent Nigerians? Well,
the truth of the matter is that as of today, from the feelers we get from reports, is that the Boko Haram as a group is divided into so many factions. And you agree that even in the midst of these factions, there could still be this faction that, that is not involved in this criminality. But my own suggestion is that those that are found to have committed crime against humanity, in propagating their ideals, the government must not allow them to go scot-free, even though they are negotiating, because what they have done, in propagating their position, is against the rights of other people. Because what they have done is that they have terminated other people's rights. It's an infringement, and they must pay for it. But that is not to say that when we see the real people in that group who were propagating their ideas and who didn't engage in this criminality, we should not engage with them, because they could be the ones that will give us the information of how we can track the other people that have become criminal. Because when the Boko Haram insurgency was becoming too rampant, some of us knew that, look, this thing has become a bazaar. All they need to do is to go to a group of boys to gather themselves and go to maybe a market and claim they are Boko Haram, and the police will flee. And they will just, make people pay tributes to them. Because it has become a criminal enterprise in which people gather themselves to rob people, to kill, to maim. In the Northeast, it became so bad that even if there is a robbery in a bank, without even investigating, the police will just come out and tell us that it was the work of Boko Haram. And the mere mention of Boko Haram. So it shows to you that there is need for us to really do a thorough investigation of these Boko Haram groups. Because I believe as at now, from what we have read, that the Boko Haram group is not a single body. And even what the statement that the president of Chad, the information he gave us, is very vital. It shows to you and I that the president of Chad has more than enough information about the workings of Boko Haram. Because the last video released by Boko Haram, it was stated that the person that spoke there was not Shekau. And people were wondering, where is Shekau? Only for the president of Chad to come out and tell us that Shekau has been deposed. So it shows you that there's need for Nigeria to dig into the information being provided by Chad, because it seems they have an inkling into how these people work more than us. I'm not saying they know more than us, but I'm just, as a layman, I have that suspicion, because I was baffled with the exposures from the president of Chad. So I think it is important for us, to
liaise with them,
align with him, and get more information from.
Let me quickly open the phone lines for our viewers across the country and beyond. As soon as your call is acknowledged, please endeavor to turn down the volume of your TV set so we can do without the feedback distortion. So I want to have your name and your location, and of course, let's keep the TV set down, the volume on your TV set down, so that we can have a crystal clear communication on the show this morning. If we can take a little detail from the insurgency, as it were, and talk about the fallout, the internally displaced persons. There are stories of the involvement of the National Assembly. At some point, we had that the Senate President donated 10 million naira to one of those camps. Recently, we also reported a case in Edo State where that over 1,000, children camped somewhere in that part of the state, and there were rumors that they were going to be relocated back to northern Nigeria. That was when we saw the Edo State governor for the first time visiting that camp. I also heard that he had donated about 500 bags of rice, promised to build schools. But are you concerned about the level of, the quality of welfare and the level of attention that this government is giving to this people at this time?
Well, I am concerned because it could have been anybody. My concern majorly is that the states, the condition of the internally displaced persons is not of their own making. It's as a result of the failure of the Nigerian state. And so the Nigerian state is liable and must be responsible for their upkeep to the highest standards. Because if the Nigerian state had provided enough security for them as citizens, they won't be displaced today. But today their livelihood, their sensibilities, in fact, it is not only enough for them to be able to access monetary or food items. I think they should also be availed traumatic experts, because the damage that has been done to their psyche, the children, their education would have been disrupted. So it behoves on the government to rise up to the occasion to ensure that even though these people have been displaced, they don't in any way suffer lack or neglect. So it's a welcome development that the government is trying to ensure that they attend to their needs, because the situation that the people are today is not of their own making. They didn't relocate themselves.
Let me hold you for a minute to take this call. Hello, good morning.
Yeah, how are you?
Welcome to Call Digest.
Okay, this is Emmanuel. I want to contribute to the issue of Boko Haram.
Where are you calling from, please?
Hello?
Where are you calling from?
Okay, this is Emmanuel. I'm calling from Benue State.
Please, Emmanuel, turn down the volume of your TV set so I can hear you clearly.
Okay. Okay, I've done that.
Beautiful. Go ahead now with your contribution.
Okay, my contribution is that the issue of Boko Haram is a thing that the government needs to pay very serious attention to. And if it demands means that the headquarters of all the Nigerian military should be relocated at that northeast, I think it will help us. Look at recently now, the Nigeria abroad, the picture against the north is that they are all terrorists, and they are against the threat. So I think if there's anything that the government should fight against is that issue of Boko Haram. They should do all they could to suspend everything so that the Nigeria can regain their thing. That's my humble contribution.
Thank you very much. Emmanuel from Benue State, good to hear from you. Thank you for your contribution on the show this morning. For a while now, we've been seeing more of a reactionary efforts from the Nigerian military. Nigerians expect them to be more proactive in the sense that let's discover plans before it happens. We've not heard much of that.
Well, the truth of the matter is that those are security matters. You won't be availed such information. You and I don't know. Maybe
well, if there was an arrest, it will get to the
media.
media.
It could not have been arrested.
If we had discovered a bomb-making factory, the media should be aware.
Nifemi, remember, there are times Americans will issue travel alerts. Don't go to so-so country because terrorist acts are going to take place. The Nigerian military could also be doing the same. Maybe those plans, they have been able to nip them in the bud. And when they arrest, I'm not sure, unlike in the past, that now they will just come and parade people. They will investigate. The game has changed. It is no longer business as usual.
As it was. Okay, let me take this. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
What's your name, please? I'm afraid we lost that. Keep trying. Please do endeavor to turn down the volume of your TV set when you're calling us. Good morning. Welcome to Call Digest. Good morning. Can you speak louder than that? What's your name?
Hello.
We can hear you. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Yeah, my name is Steven.
Stephen, from where? Stephen, please turn down the volume of your TV so I can hear you clearly.
Yeah, I'll move away from it.
Good. Go ahead with your contribution.
Alright, so I've been following on what you've been talking about, and I think Buhari has been making some very, very good steps in moving the country forward. So the issue of...
I'm afraid we lost that. Sorry. Kindly call back so that we can keep up with that conversation. Now, let's talk about, because at this point, we're looking at a situation where over time, we've seen this gap between civilians and the military widen over time. And given the nature, the unconventional nature of this war, a lot of intelligence is required from the local people. A lot of involvement. We've seen the involvement of the civilian JTF, but there are many who believe we can still do more. How do we encourage, this in Nigeria?
Well, I think one of the ways we can encourage the local population, in these fights is that we must realize one truism, and that is that this fight cannot be, this battle against Boko Haram cannot be won without the involvement of the inhabitants of those areas that are ravaged by the terrorists. So it is important that the military themselves work in tandem with the religious, traditional, youths, and whatever institutions that they have in those places. That will go a long way in giving them intelligence information. And as for the use of the JTF, I think the civilian JTF, I think they should be very, very careful, because we will see a situation whereby some of these groups will take the laws into their hands. Those are the areas they should prevent. They should only encourage them to assist them with information. Rather, they should not encourage them to assist them with arrest.
There are people who will tell you that you are saying this probably because you are not at the very center of this reality.
It's not.
It has gotten so worse that people have to protect themselves in these localities.
Yes, but I'm afraid, because even the law states that it is better for 10 people to escape justice than for one man to be denied justice. If we allow civilians who don't have the security trainings and what have you, they could impair the fight against terrorism. We could have a situation whereby innocent people could become victims. All it takes in such a mob action is just for somebody who doesn't like your face. And you and I know what happens. We have seen situations in this country where somebody will just shout, "Oli, oli, thief, thief" on somebody. And people would have killed that person before they would realize that they were just playing with one another, that the man didn't steal anything. So in as much as we must involve the locals, we must be very, very careful to respect the rights of the people and also respect the rules of engagement. That's what I'm clamoring for.
Let me take this. Hello, good morning. What's your name and where are you calling from? I lost that. Let's try this. Good morning. Comrade Eze, from where? From Enugu. Can you speak louder than that? We can hardly hear you.
I'm calling from Enugu. Good morning.
Good morning, Comrade Eze. Go ahead with your contribution.
Yeah, please, I want to disagree the comment. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
The issue of negotiation, with the Boko Haram. Hello.
Well, with you. Go ahead, Eze.
Okay, the issue of negotiating with the Boko Haram, I personally disagree with that, because these are terrorists that are terrorizing our country. So what they need negotiating with them, understand? The militants, they are different from these people. Okay, their way of action is different from the Boko Haram. So, I'm putting this question to the guests in the studio. Why are we negotiating with terrorists? Like in America, they never negotiated with terrorists. So, in this regard, now, how are we even sure after the negotiation that the activities will stop? Because as he clearly said, everybody knows that we have different groups, we have different sets of them. So, what's the need for negotiation?
It's all right. Thank you very much for your contribution from Enugu. I guess that's what America makes us
I think the response to his question is that America not negotiating with terrorists was that the terrorism was not taking place on American soil. It was taking place in faraway land. In this case, ours is an internal problem. And we are all aware that there's this reports until the security agents themselves get to the root of the matter, that the terrorists, these Boko Haram people, are of different groups. In as much as government negotiated with the Niger Delta militants, it wasn't negotiating with criminals, because we are aware that the government, that some people were kidnapping for ransom. I'm sure the government didn't negotiate with people who were kidnapping for ransom. The government was only negotiating with the communities and their restless youths, so that they don't take the laws into their hands in fighting for their rights. Nobody or responsible government will negotiate with criminals. You only negotiate with people who are not engaging in criminality. The Niger Delta issue succeeded was because people like Ken Saro-Wiwa laid down their lives. Ken Saro-Wiwa never encouraged oil bunkering, never encouraged vandalism of oil pipelines. So those are the type of characters that we negotiate with. And that is the same thing we are talking about in this issue of Boko Haram. Because we have realized now that the Boko Haram as a group is not just only one group. A lot of criminal elements have infiltrated that group, that you can't really pinpoint which is the original Boko Haram and which are the criminal Boko Haram.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to Call Digest. What's your name?
My name is Joseph. I'm calling from Sapele.
Sapele Delta.
Yes, Delta State.
All right, Joseph, turn down the volume of your TV set and go ahead with your contribution.
Yes, sir. Yes. What I would say is that, you know, the last government has serious and very slightly, so nobody should negotiate with any militant or any security. The only thing in Niger Delta, they are craving and people like a Masari, they are talking in Niger Delta if they are important. They are not important. They are criminals. So I don't want anybody to negotiate with criminals. Because too, the civilian JTF, they don't want to, but that's in Anambra, where there's some Bakassi. The politicians use the Bakassi to be fighting their enemies. They use the Bakassi to be fighting their enemies. So we don't need that. Let the government crush all those terrorists, crush them, neither they are anywhere close to terrorists, country is free for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Joseph from Sapele Delta. Good to hear from you on the show today. I think it's talking about the fact that Nigerians have lost trust, you know, in leadership for a while. For instance, there's this perception that the Nigerian civilian has of an average Nigerian soldier. Well, how can we bridge that gap? What can the army do now to redeem its image?
Well, I think it's very simple. It's for the army to respect themselves and respect other Nigerians in their conduct and their actions. They should stop treating civilians as bloody civilians. They should, you know, the army, the military as an institution should put in place mechanism that will engender a cordial and harmonious relationship within the military and the civilian populace, because the military exists to protect the civilian populace. And if the civilian populace is not giving the military the information she needs to perform its duty, the military themselves are at risk, because it is only the man that is putting on the uniform. The wife goes to the market. The children attend schools. So he himself is also at risk. The information that he will need, the military personnel will need from the civilian populace to protect his own life as well as the life of others would have been lost if there's no harmonious relations. So we must encourage the military to put in place those activities that will encourage a synergy between the military and the civilian populace.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to Call Digest.
Good morning.
What's your name, please, and where are you calling from?
My name is EKUJIMI. I'm calling from Benin.
Ikechuku from Benin.
Yeah.
Where exactly in Benin are you calling from?
Udo.
All right, go ahead now with your contribution.
Where I want to raise my own opinion is Boko Haram.
Okay.
Are you hearing me?
Yes, clearly.
So the Boko Haram I'm talking about is about the soldiers. The soldiers and the police. They can give account of the sickness that they give them. They share it with their groups. That is the reason why we are suffering for this thing. Because you can't tell me since that time we are still fighting for one particular issue. Not that they will talk about the militant. The militant is fighting for survival. Criminal is fighting for survival. But this ones are suffering to kill and die for nothing. So that is the only thing I'm doing.
Thank you very much, Ikechuku, for your contribution. I'll take two more calls on this issue before we go to the other side. It's obvious that for the few days that this administration has been in power, they seem to have focused on insecurity and corruption. And I want us to just quickly move to the other side of corruption. But let me take this call very quickly. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, how are you?
Welcome to Call Digest. What's your name?
I'm Mohammed calling from Yobe.
Mohammed from Yobe. Go ahead with the contribution.
I heard the other guy is talking about stealing JTF. So
Turn down the volume of your TV and go ahead, Mohammed.
the civilian JTF, they are very trying. No, I heard you. But we in North, we have hunters who, before even Boko Haram, we have hunters who are performing such, who are treating such criminal things like army robbers. We not been seen before Boko Haram.
Okay.
So those people now they are helping armies because they know the area more than the army. They know the bush. They know everything about the area more than the army.
Okay. Sounds like Mohammed is making a case for local hunters, local vigilantes.
No. They are part of the institutions we have advocated that the military have to use because they know the terrain. They know the information
They're
about.
just like the local divers that help.
Yes, just like there's need to involve every strata of the society in those areas because they are the ones wearing the shoe and they know where it pinches. But what we are saying is that the military or the state must, set the rules so that nobody takes the law into its hand. There are institutions for, handling state issues. It should not just be somebody waking up and, arresting, and before you know it, they will take the law into their hands. They will degenerate into a mob action. We don't want that. And that is one of the atrocities that the Amnesty International leveled against the military, that they were using the civilian JTF to commit crime against humanity, to commit murder. So those are the areas they must make use of them, but there must be rules of engagement with them. That look, give us the information, give us the time, we'll move in. Your role is to be our intelligence wing.
Okay.
So I think it is important for us. We recognize that this battle cannot be fought without
them.
the local people there.
Good morning. What's your name, sir?
Yeah, good morning. This is Alaji Jamil from Ilorin, Kwara State.
Go ahead with your contribution, Alaji.
Yeah, my contribution is that I really appreciate what you said, and I love that. What I'm trying to say is that I love that I wanted to say. Let our government stop giving soldiers. We have three religions. We have Islamic, we have Christian, and we have Eleboluku, or whatever they call it. I don't understand. They should use all these people, all these Eleboluku and other. They should use their capacity, all these their camp and other things. they use this only, and decide all these people. I swear to God, these people will run away and leave their belongings. And the other time, the soldiers will arrest them. They're just killing our soldiers. They're just killing our soldiers, wasting out their lives. They should use all this envelope and all that. So that when they use their charm and other things, they should invite them and ask them what else that they are going to do. So that when they use their charm on them, either snake or this thing, when they use it, all those people will run away from the way where they are. They call their name. This Boko Haram, they call our far. They pray over it. When they pray for Boko Haram, they get to that place. He become our president. They should call their far, they should call their pastor and give them money. Let them pray towards this thing. They should stop wasting these people's life. Some of the soldiers don't have money to do that. They don't have money to do anything. Those people that you people went to, they say, but that's not my name, it's too late, nobody knows my father than me. Those people know that place very well. Sometimes you are bringing their people that just come. So when they see the they will kill them. Or they find those people in that state, they have the money. Find them to another state. Then you clear the whole state. Kill everybody there that you see. Command the major people in that state, the origin of those state, find them to another state. Then you clear anybody that you see. Clear the bush. Use a chemical on them from this thing, plane, and kill everybody away. You are not waiting to soldier people. You are killing our brothers. Our tomorrow, you are killing them. This is Alaji Janu. Talking from Kwara State.
It's all right, Alaji. I believe you made your point there. He's saying that the president should not waste time manufacturing local machinery. Let's focus on the local charms and the supernatural alternative that we have. But really, does that really work? Because this is a global phenomenon, and then we have all of these supernatural realities all around. Or if it's really going to work, how come it hasn't worked?
We must appreciate Alaji Jamiu. He was talking with passion. It's because he's angry about the situation.
That's right.
We should just encourage him that, please, I don't know about this. Is it a level? Look when he called it. If he's aware of their potency, he should please avail the military. Me, I don't know about it anyway. So I can't speak in that line.
All right, let's turn our attention to anti-corruption. Mr. President had inaugurated a 5-man committee headed by a professor of law and human rights activist, Professor Issa Sage. There are many who are quite who are checking this out now cautiously, because this is not the first time we're having committees. We've had different kind of committees. They will sit, they bring people, they will talk, but then it has ended up to just being talk shops. There are people who have the opinion that what we should have at this time is a special court that will have a time limit to try corrupt personalities, and then we will have people who are not just talked about at the front on the front pages of the papers, but if they are truly and really corrupt, they'll be brought to book and Nigerians will see it.
Well, I think that is the essence of the committee, to advise Mr. President on other alternatives to dealing with corruption, because you and I know the level of rot in the country today and the exposures we have had since the exit of the past administration makes it very, very imperative that, look, we must tackle this thing frontally. The committee, I'm sure, has a time frame. The committee has a terms of reference. And I'm sure the essence of the committee is to help Mr. President, in the task of combating corruption. And with the caliber of persons on that committee, and with the integrity and character of Mr. President, I'm sure the essence of that committee is to, make sure that the government conducts this anti-corruption war in line with due process and respect for the rule of law. So I don't believe that this committee will just be a talk shop, because since Mr. President came on board, I'm not sure we've had any other committee apart from this.
Are we concerned about equipping anti-corruption agencies to do their job in this line? Because on the front page of the paper today, we also saw the Senate saying they will probe Obasanjo and Jonathan administration over the power sector. I mean, there seems to be multiplicity of...
No, it's not multiplicity. The legislators have what is known as the oversight functions. So it blows on them. When the legislators look into the accounts of these ministries, I think they will be in a better position as well to shed light on how resources were dispensed for projects, and that will also help the anti-corruption agencies to also be able to carry out their job, because the work that the National Assembly, the Senate, has said she's going to do is in line with its mandate as a legislative body.
How far do you see this administration going in probing what has happened in the past? Because before President Jonathan left office, he said there's nothing wrong in probing, but just don't probe my administration alone. Let's go as far back as 1960, because there are a lot of debts that we're talking about that Nigeria has incurred, had incurred since, decades past. How realistic is it to go far back in probing all of this?
The truth of the matter is that we have a Yoruba proverb that says, "Tiwoba shiriri, araki oya obi." If you have done good, you'll be eager that somebody should look into what you have done. I don't think it is right for anybody to tell an incoming, for a government that is going out, to tell an incoming government where to conduct or how to conduct.
Is it possible that there was a pact after that election? Because there was a body language from the APC that the Jonathan administration had nothing to fear about, that he wasn't going to...
Once their conduct was not in violation of the laws of the land. Because you and I know that corruption is a violation of the Constitution. So if they are telling you that you have nothing to fear, they are not telling you that if you steal all the resources that belong to the people, you have a lot to fear. Because when you were elected into office or put in a public office, you are put there to perform a responsibility to the people. And you swore on oath. So if you have violated the Constitution, you should pay for it. No pact can be greater than the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And I'm sure when Mr. President was being sworn into office, he was not sworn into office on that pact. He was sworn into office with the Constitution of Nigeria. And he owes that responsibility to ensure that justice is done to the Nigerian people through judicious and equitable distribution of our resources. And whoever has held office in the past and is found to have mismanaged that public office that has become injurious to all of us, that has resulted today in the federal government being unable to pay salaries and meet their overhead costs, that they had to go and borrow, that even now we have about 18 states or more who are owing workers' salary through no fault of theirs, but because they had an irresponsible federal government that frittered away what belonged to all.
What should be the focus, for this ongoing probe? Should it be to punish offenders or take back the funds that were stolen?
The focus of the government should be in line with the Constitution. And I'm sure the Constitution says that if you have violated the oath of office, you must face the music. And the music is that the funds will be retrieved from you and you will be punished for abusing public trust. For me, that is enough.
There are some people who are concerned about a selective process of justice. You recall that the peace committee that met with President Buhari recently talked about a due process. That bishop highlighted the fact that this is a democratic era, and before you just don't, abuse people's rights. There's a way to go, about it. But how holistic do you see this? Someone like the governor of Ekiti had said, if you really want to fight corruption, why not start with those that sponsored your election into office?
Well, I'm sure the governor of Ekiti State, popularly referred to as Balotelli, the stuntsman.
Appearing that for the first time.
Yeah, we call him Balotelli. He's a stuntsman. Professor Akiyubodi said that guy is a stuntsman. He comes up with different type of stunts. There's nothing you do in this life that people won't read meanings into. Don't forget, when former President Olusegun Obasanjo was in office, and EFCC was, arraigning people for corrupt practices, people said he was selective, he was vindictive. And as of today, Mr. President is not the one doing the arraignment or investigation. It is the anti-corruption agencies and other agencies of state saddled with that constitutional responsibility. So whatever people like.
But what's the relevance of probing these individuals who are perceived to be corrupt even within the president's camp?
No, you cannot say somebody is corrupt without providing proof.
But you know that much of the corruption concept in this part of the world is a function of people's perception. People perceive that if you've been in office for a long time and then you've accumulated wealth, then your wealth is questionable. Is it not important also for these anti-corruption stance to work to probe? We are not saying you are, okay, show us that indeed you are not corrupt, especially those who sponsor Mr. President.
Don't forget, the law doesn't work on perception. The law works on facts. The law works on evidences. That perception is a reflection of the rot in our society. You and I are living witness to the fact that not quite long ago, a woman who earns less than 15,000 naira a month saw about 12 million naira and returned it. To some people, it is impossible in Nigeria. And there are so many, even in the midst of this madness in our society, there are some people whose head is still on their body, who are still taking straight, who are going to public office, and they will tell you, look, I'm not prepared to steal. I have my father's name to protect. But what do we have in the society? People assume because of some people, because of the fact that some people have been alleged. Because for me, I'm a social scientist. I won't subscribe to labeling people. If you are telling me that somebody is corrupt, you must be ready to provide the proof. And that is why we are calling on those who have alleged that President Muhammadu Buhari should go further. Maybe they should even tell President Muhammadu Buhari to go as far back as 1914 to prove blood regard. Because as of today, what President Muhammadu Buhari has in his hands is the handover notes from the past government. And it behoves on him to ask questions. For example, $9.3 million was smuggled out of this country in violation of the laws of the land in this country, was smuggled to South Africa. The international damage to our reputation by that criminality, what they did is a clear case of criminality. They smuggled money out of this country that violated the laws of Nigeria. Because the laws of Nigeria says you cannot take above $10,000 except you declare it at the point of exit. They took over $10,000 out of Nigeria without declaring it. They took it to South Africa. Even in South Africa, they didn't declare it. Because why? Efiniwa. Because they are used to lawlessness and criminality. Again, this same government came on air and told us that they have negotiated with Boko Haram, that they have reached a ceasefire, only for them to recant a week later. And several weeks later, the spokesperson for DSS said these people scammed the Nigerian government and they collected millions of dollars. Those are criminal acts that no sane individual in public office should just overlook. You must bring them to book.
Let's get back to the phone line very quickly, just before we continue on that discussion. The number is on your screen in case you want to contribute, and please do not forget to turn down the volume of your TV set when you're doing so that we can hear you very clearly. Beyond all of these issues is also the question of how far can this go, because there are people who believe that this is a serious path to toe, because the more you probe, the more people you have to probe, the more cases that come up. Given the reality of the judicial process that we have in the country, we are known to, make noise about corruption, but not much is done in prosecuting the culprits.
Well, we have started on a process. And like we used to say, nobody knows tomorrow. We know that this government, the Nigerian people are queued behind this government, that look, this corruption, like they say, is either we kill corruption or corruption destroy all of us. And we are not prepared to open our eyes and allow corruption destroy, because corruption didn't destroy the generation of my fathers. That was why I'm here. And I too, I owe it a responsibility to leave a legacy for my children by ensuring that I join in that fight against a societal ill. It is important.
Let me take this call. Hello, good morning. Good morning, are you there?
Good morning.
What's your name, please?
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. What's your name?
Yeah, this is Olasukomi, calling from Ilorin.
From Lauren. Please go ahead with your contribution.
Yeah, I want to contribute on the topic.
All right.
Now, the issue of our past president, Goodluck Jonathan. To many people, I heard it on social media, even including you, pressmen, that you like his spirit, his conceit. I don't subscribe to that because Constitution did not allow him to do anything else except to accept if he is defeated. I, as a person, voted him in 2011, and I did not vote him this time around because he betrayed my trust by way of his policy. And coming to the issue of corruption, can anybody tell President Buhari not to prove anything? Because that is his mandate. It's one of his manifesto that is going to fight corruption. And we know what is eating us up in this country. Number one thing is corruption. Look at power holding. Look at every sector, NNPC. Is there no such thing? There is. And there are a lot of other issues going on that we can talk about in the course of time. But I want to just make it brief. The man talking about Sambisa Forest, or he's talking about the champ, he's speaking in ignorance because he's aware that all these Alpha and my pastors and the traditional this thing that I mentioned, they are very much in existence before Boko Haram started. Why are they not using those champs to fight corruption in Nigeria? Why are they not using that champ to go to Sambisa immediately in the first place by saying he's making an advertisement for our government to give back our money to go and give them again? The one they gave them in the election, is it not enough? Now, let them go and do it and come back and give us bill. We will pay. There are sick people in the hospital. They will come out with crusade. They are healing. If they should come, bring water. Are they not supposed to go to the hospital to pass them? We will not be having this hospital all around. They will pay them. So if you are not subscribing to that kind of mysterious suggestion, let the man, the military man who we have on power now, to do the strategic thing that he needs to do that will make the whole thing, we are tired of Boko Haram. We can't even sleep with our eyes closed. Though we have not had the case in a lorry here, but we are afraid. When
That's
you go to police station, you see all kind of blocks. They put there. They are not even safe. We don't have a single policeman, we are sleeping. But those, even the police station, you have their gates now. You have gate pass. All manner of rigorous. You only go there for a civil case. You become a criminal case. They look at you as if you are Boko Haram. They have their gun with them, but they are afraid of you. Even you that, so it's a peculiar situation. And thank God we voted this man out of power. Because if Nigeria should spend 1 more year with Jonathan, he will fly away from this country. Without even telling us.
It's all right, Olasukomi.
The president has absconded.
Thank you very much for your contribution on the show today. We have to wrap up this show, but I want us to talk about the felt needs of Nigeria, because this is not the first time we are probing corruption. You recall the Abacha funds, the millions of dollars that Nigeria got back. Because the truth is, after 4 years, Nigerians will not remember Buhari based on the number of people he has probed or the number of people he has jailed. Nigerians will remember him for meeting their needs, as it were. If he recovers billions of dollars, the question is, how has it impacted on social amenities, on basic amenities? They had promised free lunch to Nigerian to school children. They promised giving stipends. They promised providing employment. Are these realities that we can experience alongside these steps that they are taking?
One thing we must not shy away, that is an undeniable fact, is that President Muhammadu Buhari is known as a man of integrity, right from his military days. And that was one of the requisites, one of the qualities that stood him out. For a long time in the rulership of this country, we have not had a person of integrity like President Muhammadu Buhari. And the battle against corruption, retrieving this money, is because of the fact that money that could have been used to better the lives of you and I, of our children, that could have been plugged into our education. You can imagine, President Muhammadu Buhari said in the US that over $150 billion was stolen and kept there. So you can imagine what $150 billion we do in our economy. We effect repairs, even if it is to build refineries. The number of jobs it will create, or even if it is to attend to our electricity problem, how it will make sure that our economy that is now comatose will become more productive, that it will engage more people. So the essence of this probe, an examination of people who have held office, an examination of the past, is to make sure that these funds are withdrawn from them and used for public good. Because the essence of Mr. President being in office is to do justice to every Nigerian.
Okay.
And unlike those that have come before him, we are believing that as a man of integrity, as a man that we hold very dear to our hearts, that even the international community today have turned Nigeria into the beautiful bride.
Okay.
That the American president, Barack Obama, publicly, to the delight of all Nigerians, said this is a man of integrity. That is a testimonial that Nigerians are no longer the people that is regarded worldwide as 419ers.
We're hopeful that all of these would translate into economic buoyancy for Nigeria as a nation.
It will, because the first
for
principle
Nigerians
in human relationship is trust. We are trusting that this government that we have voted into office, we are going to give it all the necessary support, and we're also going to make sure when the government is going wrong, because the government is peopled by human beings who are mere mortals like you and I. They can make mistakes. People must get that clear. President Muhammadu Buhari is not a saint. He's not infallible. He can appoint and commit errors. But we owe it a responsibility to make sure when he falters, we point it out to him rather than to make mockery of it.
And we're hoping
because
that,
if Nigeria becomes good tomorrow, it is for the benefit of you and I.
Of all of us.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, we're also hoping that this integrity will continue after all the stolen funds have been recovered.
Yeah.
Because now we have a joint account with the CBN.
Yeah.
If
There's no more multiplicity of accounts.
If they steal the funds now, it will be bigger than
it will
what
be,
they've been stealing in the past.
It will be easy to trace that this is who stole them. Unlike when you have 50 accounts. We've gotten information that even some accounts, the head of the agency is not aware that those accounts exist, and those are it's not supposed to be so. So the whole essence is to streamline government activities so as to make the whole thing transparent and people in office accountable, and it will be a selling point so that people coming after will have to build on that lasting legacy, just like President Obama said in Ghana in 2009, that Africa
needs institutions, not men.
Strong institutions and not strong. President Muhammadu Buhari will come and go, but Nigeria will remain. What type of Nigeria do we want to bequeath to the children coming behind us? That should be uppermost in our minds.
Now, Sir EKUJIMI, thank you very much for finding time to come on the show today.
Thank you very much.
It's always an exciting time talking with you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry if I didn't take all your calls. The show continues tomorrow, and we're going to have Call Digest Extra. It kickstarts 9 o'clock. We'll talk about issues like this. We'll also give you an extra on top of it. That's how Nigerians will say it. My name is Nifemi Oguntoye. Thank you for watching. See you again.
You can now watch Core TV News live from anywhere in the world on our website www.coretvnews.com. Click on Live TV on our website and watch us live.
And welcome to Core TV Primetime Days.
To follow us on Twitter, click on Twitter icon on our website. On Facebook, click on the Facebook and YouTube to see all our previous news production. You can also watch us live on YouTube. Click Core TV, leave a space, then News. Core TV News, a 24-hour news station.